Hey everybody. So I am here today to do my review for the autobiography of Gucci Mane. If you guys don't know, Gucci Mane is a rapper. He became popular like early 2000s. He's from Atlanta, and he wrote a biography, or autobiography I should say. He wrote about his life in prison. He does have a guy who helped ghostwrite, or I don't actually think it's much of a ghostwriter, because the guy's name was on the front of the book along with Gucci Mane as the author. I don't have the galley anymore because I don't think Lily watches my videos, but thanks, Lily. At my job, she is the one who requested the galley, and this took her a while to actually, get her hands on it. She stayed persistent with Gucci Mane's rep, and that is how I was able to read it as well. She said her boyfriend wanted to read it, so I gave it back to her since she is the one who got it in the first place. So I read this book. I finished it August 1st. Today is August 7th. I give it a solid 3 stars, and I will start there. So, the things I liked about this book, it was definitely authentically Gucci Mane. If you've listened to his music or watched any of his interviews, the text in the book stays true to like his actual voice. It is written exactly as if he was speaking himself. I know people say a rule of thumb is to not write like you speak, but it works in this case. Um, and I expected it to be more kind of ghost written, but it's not. So that was a plus. Um, with that being said, I think he was pretty open about his life. He goes from his childhood up until present day. He talks about a couple prison stints he had, and the first prison stint he had um, result, or at least the biggest prison stint that we know about as far as the public, if you've been following his career, was when he was up on a murder charge. He's basically set up, and that's pretty much like documents say, and this is pretty much the story he's sticking to as well. He also prefaces before he goes into this chapter that he can't talk too much about certain things, but what he does is allowed to talk about, he's talking about. So he chalks this to being set up. Said he was with a woman one night when this guy stormed into her place. He was at this woman's place. It was like about 4 or 5 men stormed in, trying to, I guess trying to kill him. And he shot at them, and one died later in the hospital. So he was up on these murder charges. He got off due to self-defense. And after that, this is where he talks about people being mostly scared of him. He's also gotten this like nickname further in his career as like being the boogeyman. And yeah, I definitely remember that point in his career where a lot of people were just like scared of Gucci Mane, like because like he had this reputation that he killed somebody, where people where people did respect him, they were also scared of him. And he's like, in this book, he's like, I'm not a scary person, like I'm not a monster. And that he hates that people saw him that way. He also talks about a lot about his drug addiction. He was addicted to lean, even though he was doing tons of other drugs. But he mentioned how the worst of his habit, he was doing like $1,000 had $1,000 addiction a day, and that was on lean alone. And for those of you who don't know, lean is basically drinking cough syrup and mixing it with like Sprite to kind of like make it go down easy. But yeah, so it comes from that. He talks about like when he got the ice cream cone on his face. He talks a little bit about Keisha Kayor. He's getting married to her in about 2 months. And it also brought up nostalgia for me because he talked about some of his hit songs, and a lot of the most Gucci Mane listening to I did in college, so it just brought up a lot of good memories to me for me. He talked about how a lot of those songs became so popular and certain struggles in his music career. Um, Now there are some things since I have been following Gucci Mane for so long that I felt like he glossed over. And he, when people divulge parts of their lives, we also know if they're writing it themselves that there are things that people do gloss over a lot, or sometimes other people will come out and say, well, that's not exactly true, whatever. But there are some things he glossed over, and I only know that because I've been following him for so long. He didn't necessarily gloss over his relationship with Keisha Kayor. However, I wanted to know more details about it. He mentioned how they had their first date, and then he also mentioned how he didn't treat her very well, how their relationship was always on and off. And he was very like protective of her, in the sense that he mentioned like he was the one that was constantly messing up. And I guess he was also being honest too, obviously, that most of the relationship was screwed up because of him. When they had rough patches, it's because he was being mean to her. Even though he doesn't go into complete detail about certain things that he said to her, whatever, but he let it be known that like he was the one who was screwing up this relationship. He talks a lot about his beef with Young Jeezy, but he does not talk a lot about the beef between him and Yo Gotti, which is another rapper from Memphis. If anybody knows, like him and Yo Gotti had like a really good relationship, especially like in that's probably like 2009, 2010 era, like the 5-Star Chick era, I like to call it. They did like a song together called 5-Star Chick, and I used to live by that song, but that's a whole nother conversation. But he talked about how that song was popular and like how he met Nicki Minaj and how she was on the track or whatever, but he did not talk about how him and Yo Gotti fell out. A lot of people who still follow Gucci Mane and rap know that they are still not friends. He also didn't talk about how him and Nicki Minaj fell out. He talked about how him and Waka Flocka fell out, but he did not talk about how him and Nicki Minaj fell out, and now they patched their beef up or whatever. But there was like a string of tweets about him and Nicki Minaj, and like the time they fell out with each other. Even though he talks about some of these other things, I wonder why he decided not to talk about those things. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think if you're if you're a serious Gucci Mane fan, you're gonna like the book. I liked it. Is it the best autobiography or even celebrity autobiography that I've read? No, but I appreciate it. Mostly I saw this as him trying to clear his name and trying to show this new side of him. Like if you look at his Instagram, he's working out, he's eating kale, he's, he has his, his fiance all over his Instagram. He's smiling, which is a good thing. Like he's smiling, he's happy. And like he is not partaking in like alcohol and drugs anymore, which are really great things. So yeah, if you are interested, go out and get it or go and borrow a copy. And yeah, thanks for watching. Let me know if you're excited for this or not, and I will talk to you later. Bye.